What's up, y'all? Thank you for joining me today on my YouTube channel. Make sure you subscribe for more videos, more unboxings, things like that. Today we got Chris Kidawski from Pso-Rite coming on. We got an amazing interview with him, and so I think you guys will really enjoy it. Make sure you subscribe. You can also listen to this on Apple, Spotify, Google Play, any major podcast platform, and make sure you subscribe and follow me on Instagram as well at Roman the Empire, on Twitter at Roman the Empire. Feel free to even shoot me a Facebook message as well, Roman Perryman. So I'm looking forward to connecting with you guys. And so here we got Chris Kidawski, Pso-Rite. My guy Chris, thank you so much for taking the time out of your day to sit down with me, share everything that you are and talking about Pso-Rite. And so I appreciate you taking the time out.
Appreciate you, man. Thank you very much for this opportunity. I'm happy to be here.
Hey, looking forward to it. And so for everyone who doesn't know who you are, give us a brief introduction of yourself and what you're up to.
Okay, so I started at the age of 19. I ended up stopped playing football. I quit playing football for the University at Buffalo, and I realized I wasn't going to the NFL. So I was like, if I can't go to the NFL, I want to try and get people to the NFL. So at the young age of 19, I started studying as much as I could about health and wellness, programming, strength and conditioning. I got my CSCS, my Certified Strength and Conditioning Specialist certification at the age of 20. And then I started immediately being a student assistant strength and conditioning coach. I then, after 2 years, graduated from the University at Buffalo, and I got a graduate assistantship at the University of Hawaii in strength and conditioning. I got my master's in kinesiology. And then I ended up meeting a gentleman by the name of Von Bess out there. I trained him for 3 years while he played football. He ended up getting a free agent deal with the Miami Dolphins. And when he got his second more lucrative contract, he called me up and he was like, "Hey man, you want to come and work for me?" And I was like, "Really?" So I go from working 60 to 80 hours a week to maybe like 10 or 12. Yeah, sure. So I came out to Miami with him, and that's where I am today. He ended up getting traded to Cleveland, and he's no longer in the NFL. But that's where I started becoming a professional, I guess you could say. I ran a couple of sports performance clinics. I was the head coach of a CrossFit facility, and then I actually opened up my own CrossFit facility, ran it for 3 years, didn't have a single injury. I know everybody out there, oh, CrossFit, this dude's broken. No, didn't have a single injury in 3 years of anybody in my place. And then we lost our lease. They ended up wanting to knock down the plaza and build multifamily homes. So the next place that I went was my hands and my body work. So the last 4 years, I've been doing body work full time. Prior to that, I was doing it for about 8 years, part time, every once in a while. And then I ended up in 2017. 2017 or 2018, I ended up purchasing the Pso-Rite. I saw it on a advertisement, and I immediately knew the power that this thing had. So I bought it. I used the living daylights out of it for about 3 months. Back pain went away. It couldn't believe how well I was running. Just an overall better feeling of wellness. And when I started to be like, okay, I don't really need this thing that much anymore, I ended up giving it to one of my athletes who had chronically tight hip flexors. He was using it, goes on the Joe Rogan show, Joe Rogan Experience, sorry, and ends up mentioning it on there. And that from there was when the company just like took off. These guys got more orders than they could handle. So a couple of years later, 2020, the owner, their brothers, Eric and Mac, they end up moving to Miami. So they reach out to the gentleman that I gave the Pso-Rite to, and they were like, "Hey man, like you really helped us out. We'd like to sponsor you." So I'm working on my athlete that day, and they were like, "Hey, you know those guys from Pso-Rite? I'm going to meet them right after this." I'm like, "Really?" And he's like, "Yeah, I'm going to mention them to you, mention you to them, and maybe they want to come up and get body work or whatever. I don't know." I was like, "Okay, cool." I didn't think anything of it. Um, it was maybe an hour, hour and a half later. Their contact was texting me like, "Hey, Mac and Eric want to come and see you. They want to get work done. They love body work." So they ended up coming up. I mean, this is right when like COVID started. So we're talking about like
Wow.
March, April, something like that. I had them over, worked on them. We had dinner, and we just struck up a great conversation. And I started to get an amazing sense of how both of these guys are truly amazing human beings. And I kind of like thought in the back of my mind, I'm like, it would be really great working with these guys. So as our relationship kind of evolved, I took my family down to their house. We had a little pool party. We kept in contact. I went out on their boat. We're hanging out. All of a sudden, it just kind of like Eric was like, it's like family hanging out with you. And I was like, you know what? It's super strange because that's how my wife and I felt when you guys came over
Wow.
for dinner the first time. So definitely something strange in the ether there. But now, you know, I'm trying to bang the drums as loud as I can for these guys and really help people understand the product that they have, because they know that it would help people, but I don't think they're at the understanding that that they need to be with how powerful this product is. So they were like, we need somebody who, we know it's great, but we're at like a 2. We know you're at like a 10. Can you get out there and talk to people about it for us? And I was like, I would absolutely love to do that.
Yeah.
So that's what we're hopefully gonna unravel here today, or unpack.
Yeah. Oh, that's wonderful. You really touched on a lot there, and I definitely want to dive into you a little bit more before we do start talking about the product.
Okay.
Um, and so you said you got your CSCS,
Yep.
Certified Strength and Conditioning Specialist, at 20. Were you an athlete beforehand, or like,
Absolutely. I mean,
yeah,
I
tell me
played
about that.
five, 6 sports in high school. It was golf. I played football. I played basketball. I played baseball. And then I ran track, but not competitively in high school.
Mhm.
I just ran to stay in shape, to stay competitive. And then when I graduated from high school, I got into the University of Buffalo. I walked on the football team and I played there for 2 years. And like I said, I realized my grades were so bad. I wasn't really into school to begin with, but in high school, you really have no choice. In college, you have a choice about whether or not you're getting up for that 7:30 a.m. class when
Yeah.
conditioning was at 5:15 and it's 7 degrees outside. So I was kind of like, I'm just going to go back to my dorm and kind of sleep for a little bit. Sometimes I'd pass out in the student union and, you know, wouldn't hear my alarm, or I'd get up and just be like, I don't feel like it. I just don't feel like going to class. So my grades were suffering. I went to my guidance counselor after I quit football, and I said, I'm not on the 5, 6, or 7 year plan. I'm out of here in 4 years. I wanted to get somewhere warm. So she ended up loading up my class schedule, and I graduated on time. And like I said, spent 3 years at the University of Hawaii under Tommy Heffernan, and just absolutely outstanding coach, gentleman, father, husband. I mean, you name it. This guy was top notch, man. Took me under his wing, and he just let me do whatever I wanted to. He was one of those guys that was just like, if I can tell that I know what you're doing, you have full reign. And there's nothing worse than holding back somebody who has some type of talent because of something that you think. And Tommy, you know, I give him all the credit in the world. He was like, go out, help anybody that you want. It created a lot of problems because other coaches and the other football strength coach, that he didn't like me butting my head around his football players and whatnot. But these guys wanted to get better, and they knew that I had a better understanding of physiology and how to get strong, fast, or powerful. So That's what I ended up doing, and it just took off from there. I still today I'm a student. I'm trying to learn as much as I can.
Yeah, yeah, that's awesome. How did you end up flipping your grades around? Was it just a hard work thing, or because I had the same kind of situation when like I mean freshman year Virginia Tech, I actually had to transfer after my second year because I was just my grades were so bad, academic
Yeah,
probation, couldn't wrestle, things like that.
yeah.
Um, and so, how
I
was the
forced
transition as an athlete to now helping out athletes and supporting them in their growth?
So honestly, man, I forced myself to grow up. Still, I'm a huge kid at heart. I think farts are funny, and I joke around a lot, especially with my daughter. She's like 22 months old right now, and I feel like I'm more of a kid again. But really, man, I forced myself to grow up. I said, okay, you don't like school. Well, if you don't like school, you're gonna take a lot longer to graduate, and you're gonna experience more of it as a result.
Yeah.
So I think I ended up taking like 18 credits that summer. I took 18 credits in the fall, 18 credits in the spring, and then I took a normal class schedule for my senior year in the fall, which is about 12 credits. And then my senior spring semester, I only had 2 classes. So it was amazing. It was then that I had just started becoming a student assistant strength and conditioning coach um, in the university weight room at the University at Buffalo, where I was working with a lot of the Olympic athletes, volleyball players, soccer players, basketball players, track athletes, things like that, swimming and diving. And right then and there was, it rings true. If you love what you do, you don't work a day in your life. I never felt like I was working.
Yeah.
When I was reading, I mean, my boss, Phil Ryan, he had a stack like this of strength and conditioning journals from the NSCA. And I would sit there and just read study after study, and it didn't pain me. I never got bored. I was never like, this stuff sucks. Like, oh gosh, I can't believe I have to do this. The CSCS textbook, it's like that thick. And then I think there's another one that's about that thick. They're like 400 and 200 pages respectively, something like that. Read them in a week, just sponging everything in. And I was like, this is what I want to do. There's no other choice for me. I was dating girls at like 21, 22 years of age, and they would take me home to their mom and they'd be like, Mom, this is the guy I told you about. He already knows what he wants to do with his life. And that's how they would introduce me. And I'm just like, this is like really odd. Like nobody else knows. And I mean, still today, you get people in their 50s and 60s going back to school because they're like, I hate my job and I want to do something. I've hated my job for 20 years. So I feel very, very lucky. Yeah, I put gratitude out into the universe every single day for knowing what I wanted to do at such a young age. But with that came, a lot of issues because people would look at me at 25 and they'd be like, how do you know so much? And it was tough living in a grown-up world where these people were in this profession for 10, 15, 20 years, and they were forced to start learning from me. And they would be like, I don't understand how you know so much about this. And it's just, I think in Good Will Hunting, Matt Damon says, he goes, Beethoven, he looked at a piano and he could just play. So I'm not trying to compare myself to him at all. I'm just using that as kind of a segue to help people understand that when I started studying physiology, it just stuck. I could memorize it. It was something that was lighting my brain on fire. I got excited about learning about it. I've read probably 20 to 25 Russian textbooks on weightlifting and physiology. This guy Bud Charnega, he ended up he would go and get them somehow from the USSR, translate them, and then he was selling them on his website. I came across his website one day. This is like 15, 17 years ago, something like that. And I bought them all. I was making $820 a month as a graduate assistant strength and conditioning coach. My rent was $580 in Honolulu. So I couldn't afford all of them at once, but whenever I had extra money, that's where my money was going. Like that's how much it juiced me up. And it still does. Whenever I learn something new, whenever I make a connection in the human body, when I started talking to Eric and Mac, it's just like I got revived. It's like, all right, like a new area of the body that I get to study and become an expert on. And that's all I want to do for the most part with my professional time is really try to understand these concepts about the human body, you know, fascia, hip flexors, emotions, support for the organ. I mean, just everything that the psoas do. They're absolutely the most phenomenal muscle in the human body, and the general population knows probably 0.1% of 0.1% about how important they are. Doctors probably know about 0.1% of how important they are. Me, with all the studying that I've done and work on them, etc., I probably know about 1 to 2% about how important they are, because the knowledge is constantly evolving, especially when you get into the realm of talking about fascia instead of just talking about muscle itself. Talking about muscle itself right now, as far as I'm concerned, we will talk about it, but talking about muscle itself is baby talk. When you start getting into the fascia, now you start getting into degrees, masters, PhDs, things like that. And we don't know what everything that fascia does. We're finding out some pretty cool things, but you know, it's like talking about a house without talking about the foundation. Without mentioning the foundation. What do you mean that the house doesn't need a foundation? Is it floating? Is it levitating? Like, that's crazy. So talking about individual muscles is very important, I feel. It helps people get a better understanding of where some of their problems are going to be coming from or where their pain is. But ultimately, it's the fascia that is the most exciting and the master aspect and computer of the human body.
Wow. I love that you found that, like, because it's almost like a transition that was made for you from going to that strength coach to finding, like, loving the physiology of the body and then going into the body work that you are currently doing.
Yeah.
And so tell us about, like, that transition from being the coach to now doing the body work. You mentioned that you were doing the body work on yourself first, and then you decided to do it on others. And so tell us how that kind of revealed itself.
So I had knee pain for about 16 years. 14 years of age, I'm running up and down at the Cheektowaga Boys and Girls Club playing basketball on the basketball court. And as I'm running, I start to feel my knees, they start to feel like jello. And I'm like, this is so weird, man. Like, what's going on with my knees? I ended up finishing playing. The next day I wake up, my knees are killing me. It's just, I mean, tendonitis like you wouldn't believe. I'm going down the stairs at my house and my mom's looking at me like, what's wrong with you? I'm like, nothing. Whenever something bothered me when I was young, I never told anybody about it. So I went to school. I'm a freshman, and there in our school, there's 2 steps. And in the time that it took me to go up these 2 steps, the high school nurse looked at me and was like, what is wrong with you? And I was like, I don't know. You know, I played basketball yesterday and my knees really hurt. So she kind of takes me into, she's like, come on, you're coming with me. And that takes me over and starts working, like checking me out. She's like, does that hurt? And I'm like, yeah. She's like pressing in underneath into my patellas. So she calls my mom, and my mom calls a doctor. We go to a doctor visit. Doctor kind of like assesses me, takes x-rays and puts the x-rays up on the light machine. And he says, this is the normal bone structure of a healthy 14-year-old boy. I don't see where there would be any pain. So I look at my mom, and my mom's looking at me, and I'm like, Mom, I swear to God, my knees are killing me.
Yeah.
You know, like, and she's like, I believe you. So we go and we get a second opinion. Guy does the same thing. We go and get a third opinion. Guy does the same thing. So I start thinking, like, I'm just going to have to live with this. Well, I go through my whole high school career doing everything that I told you I was doing. Knees hurt every day, squatting, leg press, running, jumping, sitting. Sitting was the worst. You know, if I'm in a backseat of a car and my knees have to be at that 90-degree angle, killing me, just killing me. So, you know, I get to be, I get to the University of Hawaii, and it's like, okay, now I'm a graduate assistant strength coach. I need to be doing what the athletes are doing. You know, I need to squat, clean, snatch, run, jump, sprint, agility exercises, everything like that. So I start experiencing more and more pain. And a lot of these guys in their spare time would love to go and play basketball. So I'm back playing basketball. And after every game, I'm icing my knees, ultrasound on my knees, you know, stem on my legs, on my knees, everything like that. And it never got better. Everything that every single practitioner, athletic trainer had told me to do, every injection that I got, it would help momentarily, and then it would just get worse or stay the same.
Wow.
So finally, one day, I started to get into triathlons and marathons, and I ended up doing a 100-mile bike race around the island of Oahu. And when I got done, I got home and I had a couple of beers and I'm watching football, and I had a moment of vulnerability where I just felt sorry for myself because of how my knees were throbbing. I cried for probably a good 3 to 5 minutes, just asking why me? Like, why couldn't I be a day trader or a cashier at CVS? Why do I have to love exercise and my knees are killing me every single day? And on top of that, also be a strength coach. When I got done, I said, you know what? If nobody can fix me, I'm going to fix myself. And I ended up getting into the internet and researching as much as I could on tendonitis and tendinosis. And lo and behold, I come across two little words called trigger points. And I'm like, okay, I have a master's degree in kinesiology. I've never heard the word trigger point. I've never heard about fibrosis. I've never heard about fascia. How is this? I don't understand it. So I went and got a softball, laid on my stomach, and started putting the softball in and around my thigh. And I could not believe the amount of pain that I had in my quads. And when I would palpate, when I would put the softball on these areas, the pain would go directly into my knee. It would hurt where I'm pressing, and it would go directly into my knee at the same time. I'd stand up, walk around, my knee feels better. So that was my breaking point where I started, instead of treating symptoms, actually treating the problem. That's what I do in my practice, and that's what the Pso-Rite does for a lot of people with their back pain, anxiety, and certain other things. You get to the root of the problem, the symptoms disappear. Now, in America, what we love to do is we love treating the hell out of some symptoms.
Yeah, we do.
You got back pain, work on the back, inject the back, physical therapy on the back, then surgery on the back. Okay. You got knee pain, we got to go to the knee. Do leg extensions. We're going to do some, funky balance exercises where you bend your knee a quarter inch, something like that. We're going to waste so much time treating that knee and that symptom that you're going to go numb, and you're going to accept your condition and say, I guess I'm just never going to be able to get better. To me, all problems first start with the muscles, okay? And then they can also be a byproduct of something that happened with the fascia as well. So somebody comes in with knee pain, I'm looking in their quads, adductors, hamstrings, okay? Somebody comes in with back pain, I'm looking psoas, I'm looking glutes, I'm looking hamstrings, okay?
Yeah.
And they're like, 10, 15 minutes into, they're like, I told you I have back pain, right? And I'm like, yeah. And they're like, okay, you haven't touched my back yet. And I'm like, the back is the symptom. The back is is what's being attacked. So if I start pressing into the back and creating more of a sense of volatility, then your back's just going to tighten right back up, and nothing's really going to happen. And besides, there are some people that come to me with back pain, and I'll feel their back. Their back isn't even spasming. So how do you explain that one, right? But then I get into a glute, I get into a hamstring, and you know, they're like the Exorcist coming off the table, right? So
Yeah.
what we try to do is make sure that we are addressing problems, not symptoms.
Yeah, I'm right there with you. I think that we do handle a lot of symptoms rather than getting to the root of it, and so I
Sure.
uh, I believe I really think that we need to start making that change so that we can start really helping people instead of just sending them off with a little band-aid and not really curing them the way that they should be.
Right, right.
And so you got into the body work based on just like personal experience so that you could fix yourself, and then you started fixing others.
Right.
So now let's get into the product and kind of seeing like how other people can start using this to try and fix themselves at home.
Okay. So when you're looking at the Pso-Rite, one of the biggest problems that I see with it is that it has two peaks. Okay, so what people want to do is use both of those peaks at the same time.
Mhm.
Okay, now the way that your psoas are constructed, okay, is they have kind of like a sweeping motion. They start at the spine, and then they sweep out, and then they come back in. All right, and then you're looking at a pair of muscles called the iliacus. Though the iliacus are also hip flexors, they're only on the pelvis. Okay, they're not on the spine. They go from the pelvis to the femurs. Equally as important, you can use the Pso-Rite for the iliacus, but if you're trying to palpate the psoas, what you really want to do is just use one peak at a time. And the reason why you want to do that is because Mac wanted to develop something that had the shape of the hand, okay, but the
Mhm.
hardness of the elbow. All
Wow.
right. So when people buy the Pso-Rite, your natural inclination is, okay, I'm going to lay on both of them at the same time. The reason why we have two of them on there is because of stability. If you only made one and you laid into it, that thing's rocking back and
Yeah.
forth the entire time. It's super flimsy. Okay. And then plus, when you try to get into it with other body parts, you can use the Pso-Rite for every single muscle on your body. Okay. And then smaller areas like the glute minimus or glute medius, you can use the Pso Mini. They ended up creating one that's a little bit smaller that can get into these tighter areas. But if you're a runner and you have plantar fasciitis, you can use the Pso-Rite for the bottom of your foot. You can use it for your calf. You can use it for your hamstring. You can use it for your glute. Okay. If you pull the hamstring, you can lay on your hamstring. You can put it on. You can sit down, put it underneath on your hamstring, extend your leg, flex your leg, and literally start to work those knots out. If you have something going on with your lower back, your quadratus lumborum, you can lay on it on your side. You can lay on it directly on your back. You can get in between your rhomboids. Everybody nowadays, right? I mean, it's the computer life, especially at home. They'll be sitting in a worse seat, maybe like a dining room chair or a couch or something like that, and they're hunched over like this all day.
Yep.
Right? So those rhomboids are going to expand. They're going to get stretched and locked into that area, and they're going to burn all day long. And they're going to hurt, give you headaches, a lot of things like that. You can get the Pso-Rite into a bicep. You can get the Pso-Rite into a tricep. You know, if you're a pitcher, you can get into your infraspinatus, a lot of your lat, your subscapularis, a lot of the rotator cuff muscles to help you with pitching. And then, most importantly too, if you're a basketball player, you can get it into your quad, your adductors, the outside of your leg, TFL, IT band. I'm probably talking kind of fast for a lot of people that are listening to this. So you're going to want to rewind and listen to it again.
Mhm.
But the most important thing that we need to know about this piece of equipment is that really it helps you start to become your own best therapist. You don't just want to stop at the psoas. Yes, the psoas are very important. They're probably the most important muscle. Like I said, once again, this is primarily going to be a lot of baby talk when we're talking about just a specific muscle. But your psoas, there's two things that we need to know about human nature nowadays. Okay, the first one is our most dysfunctional pattern is breathing. Okay.
Yeah.
Everybody breathes in and out from the mouth. We actually have a product that's going to be coming out too,
Yes.
for proper breathing. Okay. But everybody breathes in and out through the mouth. The mouth is for eating, the nose is for breathing.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Very important. So, what does it matter with our breath and our psoas? Well, the diaphragm has two ligaments called the crura ligaments that come down from the diaphragm and they wrap around each psoas muscle, okay, on the right and the left before they come down and attach to the spine. All right. So when the psoas are very tight from dysfunction number 2, which is sitting every day, all day, 8 to 11 hours, something like that for most human beings, when the psoas get tight, okay, and get restricted, they stress out those ligaments, which stresses out the diaphragm and creates a more of a shallow breathing process. Okay. Why does this suck? Well, that sucks because the pericardium, the covering of our heart, the fascial covering of our heart, sits on top of the diaphragm.
Mm.
So what the psoas essentially help do is they are like a hydraulic pump, okay, for the rest of our organs and the rest of our system. When they deteriorate, so does our breath, so does the ability of our heart to contract and expand. And the pericardium, as well as the diaphragm, through fascial connections, are attached to what's called the parietal pleura, which is the covering, the fascial covering of the lungs. Okay, so when the psoas get tight, when they're healthy, let me reverse that. When they're healthy, they act as a hydraulic pump. They massage the adrenal glands and the kidneys, okay, as well as the diaphragm, the heart, and the lungs. Now, what's so important about the kidneys and the adrenals? The kidneys have the adrenals on top. So a lot of times our emotions are going to end up making the psoas very tight and stressing out the adrenals. When the adrenals get stressed out, now we're into multiple negative feedback loops. Okay. The psoas are tight, our breathing, our heart get restricted, the adrenals start pumping adrenaline like no other. And I mean, if you do a YouTube search for adrenal fatigue or adrenal fatigue syndrome or something like that, you will find some videos that have close to 2 to 3 million views. Okay. Everybody wants to go and treat adrenal fatigue. That's the symptom.
Yeah.
Okay. In some cases, not all, in some cases, that's the symptom. We want to treat the problem. So the problem is your psoas are so tight that the rest of your organs that are responsible for keeping you alive cannot do their job, that we reach extreme anxiety in most cases. I mean, I don't have to tell you like how many people probably suffer from anxiety in the United States of America and also in the rest of the world. But then you're looking at other things like back pain, right? And then when back pain hits, that's $100 billion a year industry. 30 billion for people who are trying to correct it, 30 billion in lost revenue for businesses, and about 35 to 40 billion in lost wages. Okay, I mean it's absolutely ridiculous. So we're trying. What are we trying to do? We're trying to take medication for high blood pressure. Well, once again, why is the high blood? What's with the high blood pressure? We can't breathe, and the adrenals are absolutely burned out. So you're always in this I need to run away from something state, but because my hip flexors don't work, your body, your brain, your fascia knows you can't go anywhere. So you're basically like a deer in headlights. And it's 8 to 11 hours to 12 hours sometimes a day sitting at the computer, making your living. You got to feed the kids, you got to put a roof over your head, everything like that. But really, it's a shame because that's where society is heading, especially with COVID now. You can just sit back and relax, and most people they're even working more because now your office is your home. So somebody texts you at 7 p.m. Oh crap, let me get on the computer and get that for you. And then next thing you know, you're on Facebook or you're on YouTube or you're on Instagram or something. You're just like this scrolling, and, and you find like it's something that you went to your computer for 10 minutes. You're there for an hour 20 or an hour 30. And sitting is just absolutely destroying the way human beings have been designed to live. And the Pso-Rite is the only product that can get in there and apply a necessary amount of pressure to give them love and help revive those psoas muscles, then also revive the rest of the body's processes at the same time.
Wow. You really touched a lot there, and I am so excited about it because I'm currently listening to The Oxygen Advantage.
Okay.
And listening to that book, and I've been doing I had a workout this morning that only breathing out of my nose.
Yeah.
I was taping my nose or my mouth shut during some workouts and so it's nice that you tied all that back into this product. It almost makes me feel like I'm on the right track with some of my
absolutely,
stuff,
man.
hearing the stuff that you are saying.
Absolutely. I do CrossFit. So when I started learning about, I knew that it's important to breathe out of your nose. I bought a product that helped me breathe out of my nose. And when I started doing CrossFit with it, I was like, this is stupid. Like my work capacity dropped so low, but that showed how dysfunctional my breathing was. And when I went back to it, because I was like, okay, you're the physiologist, like, am I doing this for performance or am I doing it to be healthy? I exercise to be healthy. It doesn't matter what form of exercise I do. I exercise because I want to be healthy and, I want to die at a very old age. Yeah. I don't want to enter the westernized medical system. So when I started using the product and my body became CO2 adapted, became carbon dioxide adapted, now I'm back to my old levels of work capacity, breathing through my nose. And I can tell you, man, I mean, my diaphragm opened up so much more. My running became so much more efficient. My hip flexors feel like they glide now rather than being slightly restricted or tired when I get into long bouts of running, etc. So it's absolutely incredible what nose breathing does for the human body, and we do far too less of it. Far too less.
Yeah, even just like some of the introduction stuff where they talk about like athletes, if an athlete runs up a flight of stairs and a regular person runs up a flight of stairs, the athlete's not going to be winded, still breathing through his nose. Mm-hmm. The other person breathing out their mouth. It just looks a little different, and it is dysfunction. It's like, the only animals I actually see breathe out of their mouth are like dogs. All the other ones are all breathing out of their nose.
And that's, they're trying to cool themselves off because that's the only way they can. They don't sweat.
Yeah, and so we have other ways that we can cope with it, and so I love that the nose. I love that you brought that up because it's something that I'm like. I even told my mom. My mom's got some horrible lungs after smoking years and years, and she is breathing heavy on the phone, and I'm like, if you could just focus on breathing through your nose, I'm like, don't even worry about anything else. Breathe through your nose. Go on walks. Try and continue to breathe through your nose. Things like that. And so I am glad that you brought that up, and be your own best therapist. You are your own best therapist. That's something that I truly believe too, because I feel like everybody's looking for someone else to fix them. They're always like, and so knowing that like you can find the keys to your own success and your own wellness, and you just have to kind of experiment with some things. And this is something that I really wanted to experiment with, and I'm having some fun doing it. So
yeah, man, absolutely.
Yeah. And so who is this product like recommended for, and who should be using Pso-Rite?
Everybody and anybody, man. My daughter, she's 22 months old. She loves playing with it. She sits on it. She throws it, stuff like that. She finds it very intriguing. I don't think, I don't think a 2-year-old needs to be using the Pso-Rite, but they definitely find it entertaining. Okay. You get a little bit older, and you get kids into school. Okay. And what are they doing? We're taking kids that want to bounce off the wall and we're telling them you need to sit down for hours on end. Okay. So, something like the So Mini for them, get them on it 3-4 minutes a day each side, show them how to do some really light hip flexor stretches. That is going to keep them soft and supple for years to come. You get into your teen years and then you get out into the workforce, those people need it. Okay. Moms, dads, husbands, wives, boyfriends, girlfriends, old people, young people. As we talked about before the program began, one of the biggest things that you just want to be aware of is how much power the psoas contain and everything that they do for the body. So start off slow. There are a lot of people they can't stay on it more than 30 seconds. They're like, that hurts so good. Like it's overwhelming how much pain it produces. But when they get off and they get that release, then they stand up and start moving around. I had one of my clients be like, I can't feel my hips anymore. Like, is that supposed to happen? And I go, well, sadly, no. You're already supposed to be in a state where you don't feel your hips. You should not, if you're cognizant of a muscle while you're walking or running, or something's going wrong in that muscle.
Correct.
So after using the Pso-Rite for about 4 to 6 minutes each side, he stands up, he's walking around, I can't feel my hips. And he thinks like something's wrong. And I'm like, no, by the very fact that you can't feel them, it means that they are now much more healthy. And that's a good thing.
Yeah.
You shouldn't stand up and feel like a stabbing pain in the front part of your abdomen or hip. Like it's not something that you should be feeling. The biggest thing is just how effective it is at releasing tissue. I urge people to just start off a little bit on the slower side, and build up. Start off slower, do it for maybe 30 seconds to a minute, multiple times per day. And as you feel more and more comfortable and know where your hot spots are or your tight corners, then start adding a little bit more time in those areas, 2-3 minutes, 4 minutes, 6 minutes, something like that. And we're currently in the process of producing a lot of content for people to help them, like we said, become their own best therapist. The Pso-Rite itself will do a phenomenal job with any area that you have pain or problems in, especially obviously the psoas. But there are also a lot of ways or a lot of things that can complement what you're doing with the Pso-Rite to achieve that next level of health. So that's what we are in the process of doing right now. We're going to be creating a lot of content to help people understand how to optimize the use of the Pso-Rite. Like I said, these guys, they created just an amazing product. And we need to help people understand the power that it has. Because when you look at it, you're just like, what is this thing? Like, what's going on? And like I said, people's first inclination is, okay, let me lay down on both peaks.
Yeah.
No, it had to be built that way. But when you when you use one peak for one side and one peak for the other, and you start moving around and getting into where some of the really tight, tender areas are, that's how you're going to optimize it. And then you throw in a couple of stretches, and then you start using it in other areas of the body. And you're never going to have to look for somebody else as to why things are going wrong in your body. You're going to be able to fix yourself.
Yeah, that's awesome. And I do recommend people go slow, because even I took it to a little next level before I probably needed to. And then I did feel I was sore just right in my hip flexors, and because when I first tried it too, I tried to hop on both sides. And then once I figured out how intentional this product is and how you can place it somewhere, it's not like a foam roller where it's going to just go over that whole muscle. Like you have to, this is a very intentional piece where you can place it where you want it, roll out where you want it, and really get the unique design gets deep into these places that a foam roller, even with ridges, just won't get into. And so it's like you do have to
Shape of the
kind of,
hand. Yeah.
yeah, you
Shape of
do
the
have
hand,
to
hardness of the
respect it.
elbow. A foam roller is like a carpet bomb. Like if you don't know what you're trying to do,
Yeah.
get on a foam roller and it's just like you're gonna hit a whole bunch of stuff. Foam rollers are great, don't get me wrong.
Yeah.
Okay. But a Pso-Rite is more along the lines of a sniper, and that's what
Mm.
a myoskeletal therapist is. They're snipers. They go out like Navy SEAL style. If this is hurting, I know where to go after that, and they're just hitting fine areas, and you're just like, man, like nothing's ever hurt that bad, and it's totally unrelated to my pain, but it's reproducing the pain that I have. So like I said, we're trying to get into the problem, not the symptom, and we're trying to help people fine tune um, the answer to that problem with how the Pso-Rite is developed. But with the two peaks, sometimes people get confused and they lay on it, and okay, that's good. No, it can be better. And like I said, we're coming out with a lot of content to help people understand. It's going to be all free. Everything's going to be free, so people can go on and learn. It's kind of like when people are in pain, they're not very happy, and they tend to have a general attitude to bring other people down. When you don't have pain, you're happy and you generally have an attitude to lift people up. So at Pso-Rite, what we want people to be is happy, and we want them to take their pain away, be happy. So that way we have a much better world to look forward to.
Yeah. I think it was a quote from, he's a big movement culture guy, Ido Portal. He was like, how can you truly live if you can't live in your body, if you can't move in your
Right,
body, and you can't move
right.
without pain. And so I can definitely see how this could enhance people's lives. I mean, because I'm sure it really helped you, or you just figuring out that how to release that knee pain was
Hmm.
probably night and day, just from your daily experience of constant knee pain to being knee pain free. I mean,
Yeah.
that was probably a huge stepping stone for you. And so hopefully this conversation, as well as this product, can help people kind of see that they are suffering daily from pain that they don't necessarily need to be suffering from.
Yeah, absolutely, man. One, just to kind of rewind here for a quick second,
Yeah.
you asked me how I made that transition from being a strength coach to being a body worker. I started to feel more of a reward from taking people's pain away than I did from increasing somebody's deadlift by 10 pounds.
Wow.
You increase somebody's deadlift, maybe they catch a touchdown, maybe their grocery bags feel lighter next time they go to the store. But when you take somebody's pain away, I mean, I've literally had spouses contact me over the phone or via email saying, thank you for giving me my husband back. Thank you for giving me my wife back. My wife has been in pain for 25 years. She made my life miserable. She made our kids' life miserable. She made her friend's life miserable. You took her pain away. And like, this is the woman that I fell in love with, and like literally those are some of the calls and the handshakes and the emails that I get when I'm fixing pain. I mean, how do you can't put a price on that, when you get something like that. So, um, when you look at the Pso-Rite, it's the most versatile tool for taking away virtually any pain you have in the entire body. How do you put a price on that? You look at some of the YouTube commentary and whatnot, and some people are like, it's overpriced. And to me, if you say that it's overpriced, you're just not in enough pain, or you don't know what true pain is, or it hasn't been around long enough. Because after 16 years of having my knees be in pain, bro, I mean, I probably spent 20 to 30 grand trying to get my knees better. And it was a $3.99 softball that helped the most. So I'd go through all of it again. I'd spend as much as I could again if something ever went wrong, in order to find out how to get rid of it naturally and get rid of the problem. So when you look at the Pso-Rite, you're combining a lacrosse ball, a baseball, a softball, a foam roller, everything in one. And then we have other great products like the Pso Spine, the Pso Stick, and the So Many. And we have a whole bunch of other things that are on the back burner. And what we're trying to do is put health back in the hands of the people. And everything that I've been doing for the last 20 years, studying physiology, finding out what supplements work, what supplements don't work, what the best mobility products are, we're trying to help put health back in the hands of the people, have them come someplace where they know they're going to be taken care of. You know, not just like, oh, let me see if this works. Oh, great, that was another $120 out the window. Something like that. Let me see if I can get my return back after 75 days. Crap, I can't. Okay, well, it's going either in the garbage in the attic, or it's just going to be a trophy on my shelf of failed experiments, right? We're trying not to be like that. We're trying to produce things and content, but products and content that are going to help people in infinite ways.
I think that's a beautiful why behind the product, and that's something that, shoot, I mean, I'm definitely glad that I got to try the product out. I think it's going to be a staple for me. I know I'm going to bring it to my wrestlers that I coach, and I've already brought it in the room and had them try it out, and they're all getting that. They had that 30-second kind of hit where it was like, oh, I think that this is something I need to continually work on, and so I'm excited to bring that to them and get them working on it on themselves.
Absolutely, man. Just another story. I should have said this earlier. It was probably about 4 months ago. I started working with, depending on what chart you look at, the number 1 or the number 4 recruited athlete for wrestling in the country. His name's Frankie, and he ended up going to Northwestern. The kid came to me because he was having really, really bad hip pain on the right side. He ended up going to an osteopathic doctor, and the doctor was like, well, you know, you got a little bit of a hernia going on, and we're going to have to go in there and shave down your hip cavity. And his parents are looking at the doctor, and they're like, you're not shaving nothing. Like, this dude's got a full D1 ride to Northwestern wrestling. So a friend of theirs is a client of mine, and they're like, you got to go and see Chris. So I worked on him for a good hour. I showed him the Pso-Rite, said, bro, take it home, start using it. And he came back for his next session, and he goes, bro, it feels like somebody took like 40 pounds off of each of my legs. And I said, well, you know, how does the hip feel? And he goes, there's a little bit of pain there, but he's like, it's mostly gone. Like, he's like, I can't believe that it was just a muscular problem. And I'm not trying to talk badly about the doctor or fault the doctor at all. That's his world. His world is looking at something from a structural point of view and saying, this is what's wrong and my knife will fix it. Okay. That's his world. My world is, let's look at the fascia, let's look at the muscle and manipulate it. Let's apply pressure. Pressure is the only thing in the human body that tells the fascia to tell the brain, to tell the nerve, to tell the muscle to relax. Touch is very soothing. Babies, when they're born, will literally starve themselves rather than not be touched. Okay, so with the Pso-Rite, we are given shape of the hand, hardness of the elbow, the opportunity to actually touch ourselves, right? To actually use something that looks like a hand and it has the hardness of an elbow to alleviate where we feel pain or problems.
Wow. Yeah, and I like that because I've always been someone that's a little. I have problems like asking people for help, and so it's like I love that I can like figure out what's wrong with me with this. I mean, it's something I'm working on, but being my own therapist is something that I truly believe in because I felt like it's always been just me out there as an individual sport. And I love that you brought in the Northwestern wrestler Frankie as, imagine what wrestler he could be now. That is are 40 pounds lighter. He was wrestling with ankle weights on, it sounds like. And so I'm excited to take a look at him, and I'll have to do some research on him and see if I can connect with him.
Yeah, Roman, I kid you not, man. This kid got on my table, and when he got on, I looked at him and I was like, what is wrong with you, man? Like he walked up the driveway, he walked in fine. And then I'm looking at him get up on the table. I'm like, he looked like he was 90 years old. Kid's 18. And I'm just like, I can't believe this right now. Like it hurts that bad. And he's like, yeah, bro. Yeah, like I'm in a lot of pain. Second session, I worked on him. He used the Pso-Rite for 3 days, came back, and he's like a brand new person.
Man. Yep. It's awesome stories like that really, really are a testament to how good the product is and the changes that can be made just by kind of using the product correctly and really diving into yourself.
Yeah, absolutely.
So in closing, where can people find the Pso-Rite and on social media, and where can people find you on social media as well if they do want to follow up with any questions and things like that?
So I do not have any social media available, but we have our website, www.pso-rite.com, PSO-RITE.com. And it's the same for our Instagram handle as well, at Pso-Rite, Pso-Rite.
Perfect. Shouts out to you for staying away from social media.
Yeah, man. It never really jived with me, my friend. It never really jived with me. It didn't catch on. I didn't like it from the MySpace days, and then everything that it's kind of, turned into, the monster that it's turned into now. It's essential for businesses. If you have a business, I think social media is absolutely amazing. You can get your product in front of a lot of people that otherwise maybe wouldn't see it. But if you're just, you go 9 to 5 and you don't really have any reason to be on social media, I don't know, man. The iPhones, the Samsungs of the world, they can do too many things these days. People are like, oh, I use it because I want to just keep abreast of what everybody's doing. And it's like, they can text you pictures. They can, text you on your phone. You can know what they're doing. You don't have to go on Facebook and see, but that's not what this podcast is about. So I won't go down that rabbit hole.
Oh yeah, no worries. And so, Chris, I appreciate you coming on and sharing
you, man.
Yeah, sharing all the expertise. I mean, I know that I definitely learned something, and I know that the audience is going to learn something, and hopefully they can rewind and listen to it again and I know I'm going to, because you did cover a lot in there, and I'm excited to kind of dive back into it as well.
This is, man, body work, true body work is an enigma. It's very much kind of woo-woo. It's witch doctorish, right? Like you find out about somebody that knows what they're doing, and it's almost kind of like Bigfoot, right? Like spotting Bigfoot. So when I talk about this stuff, it's very easy for me to talk about things that I've been working with for the last 20 years. Okay. When somebody doesn't know about physiology at all, coding, or the stock market or whatever, you need to go back and listen to this podcast again. Skip all the stuff about me and where I came from and whatever. Listen to the physiological aspects of it and start to connect that with what you feel when you're using the Pso-Rite. And you'll never need somebody like me again.
Hey, well, I appreciate you sharing everything, Chris. It was a pleasure, and I'm looking forward to connecting all the people to you and the Pso-Rite. And thanks again.
Absolutely, man. The pleasure was all mine. Thank you for having me on.
Hey, no problem at all.